What if I told you that before you were even born, you sat in a realm beyond time, beyond space, making decisions about the life you're living right now? That your family, your friends, even the challenges you face weren't just accidents, but choices. Imagine this. Before your first breath, before your body even existed, your soul was in its purest state, completely free, weightless, infinite. But despite existing in a place of absolute peace, something inside you yearned for more. A call to grow, to experience, to evolve. And so, a decision had to be made. It was time for another journey. But this wasn't just any journey. This time, you wanted it to count. You wanted to learn deeper truths, master certain lessons, and maybe even rewrite past mistakes from previous lifetimes. And so, you entered a vast, glowing expanse. A space where souls gather before incarnation, where everything is decided. This is where it all begins. You weren't alone. Around you, wise and ancient beings, guides, mentors, higher consciousness, stood ready to assist. They had been with you for lifetimes, watching over your progress, understanding your patterns, your struggles, your triumphs. They knew exactly what you needed in this next life, but they wouldn't decide for you. That was your job. Every possible life stretched before you, like an infinite number of roads, each leading to a different version of you. Some were easy, filled with comfort and joy. Others, much harder. But those were the ones that intrigued you the most. The ones where you would have to fight for growth. The ones that would shape you into something greater. So you made your first choice, your core lesson. Perhaps you wanted to learn unconditional love, so you chose a life where you'd experience heartbreak to teach you what love truly means. Maybe you needed to master patience, so you picked a path full of delays and obstacles, forcing you to slow down and trust the timing of the universe. Or maybe it was forgiveness, so you selected betrayals and hardships to test your ability to let go. And then, the details started to unfold. Your family, the first souls you'd meet in this new life. Some would be there to nurture and support you, while others, they would challenge you in ways you couldn't yet comprehend. That parent who was never there, that sibling who seemed to compete with you at every turn, those weren't accidents. They were the people you specifically chose, because they would push you toward the lessons you needed to master. Then came the karmic ties. These are the souls you've encountered before, through lifetimes upon lifetimes. Some have loved you, others have hurt you, and some have played every role in between. This time, you decided how they would return. The best friend you'd feel an instant connection with? A familiar soul from the past. The person who would break your heart? Someone you once wronged in another life, now here to balance the scales. The mentor who would change your path forever. A soul you once guided, now returning the favor. And yes, even your soulmate was part of the plan. Maybe in a past life, the timing wasn't right. Maybe you were separated too soon. But in this lifetime, you arranged another chance, another moment to find each other again. Only, there were no guarantees. You might have chosen obstacles to overcome before meeting. You might have given yourselves lessons to learn separately before you could reunite. But one thing was certain. If it was meant to be, the universe would create the right moment, the right place, and the right circumstances. Then came the harder decisions, the challenges, the hardships, the moments that would make you question everything. You had to decide, how much struggle were you willing to face? How much growth were you truly ready for? Because you knew that the greater the challenge, the greater the transformation. So maybe you chose to be born into a family where love wasn't freely given, forcing you to learn how to love yourself. Maybe you chose financial hardship, so you could develop resilience and find strength in places others wouldn't. Maybe you chose to lose someone you loved, to teach you the deepest lessons about grief, healing, and the eternal nature of the soul. And then, once every detail had been chosen, once every lesson was in place, you were ready. A final moment of peace, a last glance at the plan, a whisper from your guides, promising they would always be there, even when you forgot. And then, the leap. A shift, a falling sensation, and then, darkness, the veil of forgetting. The memories of all that you planned faded as you entered this world, as you took your first breath, as you opened your eyes for the very first time. But deep inside, in the quiet corners of your soul, you still know. The blueprint is still there, waiting to be remembered. Because the truth is, you've been here before. And one day, when this life ends, you'll do it all again. The question is, what will you do with this lifetime? Will you follow the lessons your soul set for you? Will you recognize the people you once knew? And most importantly, will you wake up to the truth of who you really are? Life unfolds in ways that often feel random, unfair, or completely beyond our control. But what if every challenge, every painful moment, every unexpected twist was something your soul chose before you were even born? It's a hard idea to accept. Why would anyone choose suffering? Why would you willingly place obstacles in your own path? The truth is, your soul isn't looking for comfort. It's looking for growth. And the only way to grow is to experience resistance. Just like a muscle only strengthens through strain, your soul only evolves through challenge. That's why, before you took your first breath, you carefully selected the struggles you would face in this life. Not as punishment, not as some cruel cosmic test, but as a path to your own highest potential. Maybe your biggest lesson was self-worth. So you chose to be born into a family that never truly saw you, never gave you the love or validation you craved. At first, it might have seemed like you were abandoned or unworthy. But in reality, you were being given an opportunity. The chance to find that worth within yourself, to realize that you never needed anyone else's approval to begin with. Maybe your lesson was resilience. So you chose setbacks, financial hardship, heartbreak, betrayal. You chose to experience failure not because you wanted to suffer, but because you wanted to know what it felt like to rise again, to rebuild yourself, to find power in your own ability to keep going no matter what. Or maybe your lesson was forgiveness. And so, in this life, you arranged to meet someone who would hurt you deeply. Someone who would test your ability to let go of anger, to release resentment, to see past the pain, and recognize that even those who harm us are part of our growth. But here's the catch. Just because you chose these challenges doesn't mean you automatically overcome them. Free will still exists. You could become trapped in cycles of bitterness, fear, and avoidance, running from the very lessons you designed for yourself. The question isn't why these things happen to you. The question is, will you recognize them as the stepping stones they were meant to be? Think about the hardest moments of your life, the moments that broke you, the ones you thought you'd never recover from. And then ask yourself, did those moments in some way shape you? Did they change you? Did they force you to grow into something stronger, wiser, or more compassionate? And if they did, then maybe they weren't accidents after all. Your soul knew what it was doing. Even if you don't remember making these choices, deep down, a part of you knows that every struggle is part of a larger journey. A journey that you designed. But here's where things get complicated. If your soul mapped out these lessons before you were born, does that mean your entire life is predestined? Do you really have control over anything? The answer is both yes and no. Think of life like a video game. The game world has already been created. The challenges, the landscapes, the major plot points. But how you move through it, that's up to you. Your soul set the blueprint, but you are the one playing the game. You make the choices. You decide whether to face your lessons head-on or avoid them. Let's say you were meant to learn about trust. You might find yourself in situations where you have to decide, do you open up to this person, even though you've been hurt before? Do you risk vulnerability, or do you shut yourself off? Your soul set the stage, but the script is still being written by you. This is why some people repeat the same painful cycles over and over again. They refuse to face the lesson, so the universe keeps bringing it back in different forms, different people, different circumstances, but always the same core issue. Until one day, they finally recognize the pattern. They finally break free, and that's when everything changes. But the reason we don't always see the pattern, the reason we don't remember choosing this life, is because of something called the veil of forgetting. The moment you were born, you passed through a kind of spiritual amnesia. You forgot everything, your past lives, your soul contracts, your higher purpose. And this wasn't an accident. It was necessary. Because if you remembered everything, the lessons wouldn't be real. You wouldn't truly experience pain, loss, or joy in the same way. You would go through life knowing it was all just a test, and that would take away the depth of your emotions, the authenticity of your choices. But even though you don't consciously remember, your soul is constantly nudging you. Have you ever had a gut feeling that guided you away from something harmful? Have you ever felt an unexplained connection to someone you just met, as if you'd known them forever? Have you ever had a moment of déjà vu so strong that it made you stop in your tracks? These are echoes of what your soul already knows. Clues left behind to help you wake up, to remind you of the truth beneath the illusion of everyday life. Some people go their entire lives without ever questioning why they're here. They move from birth to death in a fog, unaware that they're following a path they once chose. But others? They remember. They start noticing the patterns. They start recognizing the lessons. They start trusting the inner voice that's been whispering to them all along. And that's when they begin to take control. Because the moment you realize your life is not random, the moment you understand that you are not a victim but a conscious creator, everything changes. You stop seeing challenges as punishments and start seeing them as stepping stones. You stop blaming others for your pain and start asking, what am I meant to learn from this? You stop feeling powerless and start realizing that at any moment, you can choose a new path. The veil of forgetting may have hidden the truth from you, but now you're starting to remember. The question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you keep going through life as if none of this matters? Or will you start living with intention, knowing that every experience, good or bad, is shaping you into something greater? You chose this life. You chose your lessons. And now, it's time to wake up to the truth of who you really are. At some point, whether through old age, illness, or an unexpected event, this life will come to an end. The body slows. The breath fades. The world as you know it begins to dissolve. And then, something shifts. A weight lifts. The heaviness of physical existence, the burdens of the body, the worries of the mind, gone. What remains is a profound sense of clarity, like waking up from a long, complicated dream. Because that's exactly what this life was, a dream your soul stepped into. And now, it's time to step out. At first, there's a sense of disorientation. You're aware that you've left your body, but you don't feel gone. In fact, you feel more alive than ever, lighter, freer, as if you've been unshackled from something that was holding you down. You look back at your life, at everything you experienced, and suddenly you understand. You see the pain, the struggles, the heartaches, but now they make sense. You see how every moment was connected, how every choice led to another, how the people who hurt you were often playing the roles they agreed to play before you were even born. And then, the review begins. This isn't a judgment. There is no punishment, no external force condemning you for what you did or didn't do. Instead, it's a process of understanding. You relive your life, not just through your own eyes, but through the eyes of everyone you interacted with. That moment, when you helped someone without expecting anything in return. You now feel the warmth and gratitude that radiated through them. That time you said something cruel in anger. You now experience the pain you caused, as if it were your own. It's not meant to make you suffer. It's meant to teach you, to show you the direct impact of your energy, your actions, your words. Because in the physical world, it's easy to believe that what we do doesn't matter, that we're separate from others. But here, in this place of absolute truth, you see, there was never any separation. Every interaction, every choice, every ripple of energy you sent out came back in ways you couldn't even imagine. And then comes the most important part, the realization of what was left unfinished. Because this isn't the end. Not yet. There's still more to learn, more to experience, more to balance. There are certain karmic threads still tangled, certain lessons still waiting to be mastered, certain souls you still have agreements with, unresolved stories that need another chapter. So, what happens next? You step into a space that exists between lives, a realm of pure consciousness. Some call it the interlife, others call it the between worlds. It's a place where time doesn't exist, where you are no longer bound by the limitations of a body. Here, you meet with your guides, those who have walked with you through lifetimes. They don't scold or shame you for what you did or didn't do. Instead, they ask a simple question. What did you learn? And then another. What do you still need to learn? And this is where the next journey begins. Every soul reaches this point, the crossroads between what was and what comes next. And now, the planning begins again. This time, with all the knowledge of your past life fresh in your consciousness, you make the choices once more. What do you want to experience next? What lessons are still unfinished? What karmic bonds still need to be honored? And here's where it gets interesting, because while some of these choices will feel familiar, others will challenge you in ways you never expected. Maybe in your last life, you lived in wealth and privilege, but you never truly understood what it meant to struggle. So this time, you choose a life where you start with nothing, where you learn the depths of resilience and the true meaning of gratitude. Maybe you were betrayed by someone you loved, and you carried that bitterness with you until the end. Now, you choose to return together, but this time, in reversed roles, so that you can both understand the full spectrum of that experience. Maybe you spent a lifetime consumed by anger, by judgment, by the need for control. And now, you decide it's time to let go, to live a life of surrender, of trust, of unconditional love. And it's not just about the lessons, it's about the connections. The souls you've traveled with before, the ones you feel drawn to, the ones who feel like home even when you've just met them, many of them will be returning with you. Some will be your family, some will be your friends, some will be the ones who challenge you the most. And so, the decisions are made, the blueprint is drawn, the challenges are set. And just before you return, there's one final step, the veil of forgetting. Because if you remembered everything, if you carried all this knowledge into your next life, the lessons wouldn't be real. You wouldn't feel the pain, the struggle, the triumph in the same way. You would see the game for what it is, and that would take away its power. So, with one final breath, you step forward. A falling sensation, a rush of energy. And then, darkness. A new life begins. You open your eyes for the first time. You take your first breath, and just like that, you forget it all. But deep inside, the knowledge is still there, waiting, whispering, guiding you back to the truth of who you are. The cycle begins again. The lessons unfold. The journey continues. And one day, when this life is over, you'll return to the in-between, look back on everything you've done, and ask yourself the same question once more. What did I learn? And just as you did before, you'll begin planning your next adventure. Because until you've mastered every lesson, until you've balanced every karmic thread, until you no longer need the physical world to evolve, you will keep coming back. Again, and again, and again. The question is, what will you do with this life? Will you recognize the lessons? Will you see the patterns? Will you wake up to the truth of why you're really here? Or will you keep walking the same path, repeating the same struggles, unaware that the power to change everything has been inside you all along? Because whether you realize it or not, you are the architect of your own existence. The question is, what will you create next? Most souls return, again and again, lifetime after lifetime, walking the path of reincarnation, learning, growing, evolving, yet often repeating the same mistakes, trapped in the same patterns. But some wake up, some realize the truth. And once you truly see it, once you understand why you keep coming back, a question emerges. Can you break free? And if so, how? Because that's the ultimate goal, isn't it? Not to simply exist, not to keep cycling through lives without awareness, but to evolve to the point where you no longer need to return. To reach a state where your soul is no longer bound by karma, where your lessons have been learned, where you have become something greater. But liberation isn't about running away from life. It's about transcending it. It's about understanding that this world, this physical reality, is nothing more than a school, a temporary space designed for learning. And once you master the lessons, you graduate. So what does that look like? The first step is awareness. Most people go through life asleep. They think their suffering is random. They think their hardships are unfair. They think they are powerless victims of circumstance. But the moment you realize that every struggle, every challenge, every painful experience was designed for you, something shifts. Suddenly you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" And that's when everything changes, because the only way to stop repeating the same cycles is to finally learn the lesson. Think about the things that keep showing up in your life. The same kinds of relationships, the same struggles with money, with self-worth, with fear, the same patterns that seem to follow you, no matter where you go. These are not coincidences. These are unfinished lessons. And until you face them, until you truly master them, you will keep coming back. So what are the key lessons? The ones that, once learned, allow a soul to move beyond the cycle of reincarnation. It comes down to mastery. Mastery of emotions, mastery of the self, mastery of love. Because at the core of everything, love is the highest frequency, the most powerful energy. And yet, so many souls struggle to embody it. They hold on to anger, resentment, jealousy, fear. They stay trapped in lower vibrations, unable to transcend the illusions of separation, of ego, of control. To break free, you must let go. Let go of attachment. Let go of blame. Let go of the idea that you are separate from anything or anyone. Because the truth is, we are all connected. Everything is energy. Everything you do ripples outward, touching others in ways you can't even comprehend. And once you see this, truly see it, you begin to live differently. You stop reacting with anger, because you understand that every person who hurts you is simply playing out their own lessons. You stop seeking revenge, because you recognize that karma balances itself without your interference. You stop fearing loss, because you know that nothing is ever truly lost, only transformed. And most importantly, you stop identifying with the temporary. Because you are not your body, you are not your possessions, you are not your job, your reputation, your status. You are something much, much greater. And once you live from that truth, you begin to ascend. But here's the twist. Not everyone who reaches this level chooses to leave. Some do. Some souls, having completed their journey, move on to higher dimensions of existence, to realms beyond human comprehension. But others choose to come back, not out of necessity, but out of service. These are the awakened ones, the teachers, the guides, the ones who have broken free but return to help others do the same. Think of the great spiritual figures throughout history. Buddha, Jesus, enlightened masters of all traditions. They did not come back because they had to. They came back because they chose to, because their souls had reached a state where the only desire left was to uplift others, to light the way for those still lost in the illusion. And so, the ultimate question becomes, what will you do? Because the journey isn't just about escaping, it's about remembering. Remembering who you are, remembering why you came here, remembering that beneath the struggles, beneath the suffering, beneath the endless cycles of birth and death, there is something eternal, something limitless, something divine. And that something is you. You have always been more than this life, more than this body, more than this world. You were never lost, you only forgot. And now? Now it's time to wake up, to see the patterns, to learn the lessons, to rise beyond them, because you are not meant to be trapped in this cycle forever. You are meant to evolve, to expand, to return to the infinite consciousness that you have always been. The only question that remains is, are you ready?